Okay, so the Welsh in America basically revolves around one man, Prince Madog, or in his Welsh he's known as Prince Madog. And he lived as a prince in the Welsh kingdom of Gwynedd in the 1100s. When his father, Owen ab Gwynedd, which was referred to as one of the best Welsh rulers in history, there was a bloody dispute of who would succeed him. Even though he appointed his one son, Hywel, as the heir to the throne, Madog's siblings fought over the crown. And he was not one for fighting. So, him and his brother decided to sail away from the fighting. And his brother's name was Ryrid. And they set sail in 1170. And their father died in 1169 in December. They came back in 1171 to pick up settlers then, and they weren't heard of again. This is basically the story of Prince Madog. This is also the only claim to pre-Columbian Welsh in America, is from Madog. But the Tudors used this as propaganda to stake their claim above the French and Spanish in the New World, and that they were the rightful owners of the Americas. Although the French and Spanish likely made pre-Columbian voyages to the Americas, the Tudors, let's just say, have a history of using propaganda to get it their way. Well, many people say that Prince Madog's story starts here, in the Tudor era, after Columbus had discovered America, but this is not true. The first reference to a sailor named Madog or Madog occurs in a Sywyd, which is basically a Welsh poem, by a Welsh poet named Madog ap Rhys. He was born in 1450 and died in 1483, so he wasn't even alive when Columbus discovered America, and he was from Powys in Wales. But he's not even the only one. It likely stretches earlier to a Flemish writer called Willem in 1250 to 1255, somewhere in between that time. He wrote a manuscript of how a man named Madog sailed across the ocean, and he was from Wales, he also stated. But we were never able to exactly find the manuscript. We found a scrap which read this, although this never said anything of how he was related to King Owen ab Gwynedd. Now, the rest of this is a part of the story of Madog, and this doesn't come from any European sources. This all comes from the Indians in later times. Let's start off early with, in 1686, Reverend Morgan Jones wrote a letter to Thomas Lloyd, William Penn's deputy, that in 1669 he was in North Carolina and was captured by the Doeg tribe. And that's spelled D-O-E-G. And that is I'll say, quite Welsh-sounding name. But, coincidences happen. But he claimed they were part of the Tuscarora tribe. And they heard him speak Welsh. They spared his life, and he began preaching the gospel to them in Welsh, and he stayed there for several months. But this isn't the only story like this, where Indians have a connection to the Welsh. This one's probably one of the biggest evidences regarding this. In 1782, the future first governor of Tennessee, John Sevier, had a conversation with Chief Ancanastada of the Cherokee Indians about the stone forts on the Alabama River. He said that an ancient white people, literally called the Welsh, built them in ancient times, and the Cherokee's ancestors killed them off. He literally said that this was the Welsh who did it. He also described them as the moon-eyed people, which were said to be pale, moon-eyed people who were shorter in stature and had beards. This describes the Welsh pretty well, because, no offense to any Welsh people, but they tend to be smaller, especially to southern Indians. And he literally says that an ancient people called the Welsh did this. But yet, for even more proof, the painter George Catlin in 1841 studied the Mandan Indians as he went over to their tribe, went to their villages, studied their customs and culture. And he noticed that their boats looked like coracles, which were fishing boats that they use today still in Wales to fish, and that they had used in the Middle Ages. The only thing that was different is that the Mandan ones were made of buffalo hides. And he also noted their blonde hair and fairly white skin. Some, he said, were almost as pale as Europeans. Now, many people do argue this and say that this isn't really true, and many people also say that the Mandan language is kind of resemblant to Welsh, and many people also deny that too, only with like a few words being similar, which is common for many languages. But it is pretty convoluted. People lie, and with this especially, and try and cover up a lot of these things. He also noted their advancements, their sort of roads. Their houses were earth lodges, and they sort of resembled the wattle and daub houses that the people of Wales built. Although, with even more proof, this will be the final thing. As the Indians say, they went up the Alabama River when they sailed into the Gulf of Mexico past Mobile, Alabama. Up the Alabama River, and up the Coosa River to the modern-day DeSoto State Park on Mount Lookout in the Welsh Caves. They supposedly built stone forts that many people say resemble other Welsh castles and forts. Then sailing up the Coosa River, they went to Fort Mountain, Georgia, where they built another fort. And you can actually see resemblance of stone something, maybe a fort. It isn't entirely known. But then they went up to the Devil's Backbone on Rose Island near Louisville and near Jeffersonville, Indiana, where this was supposedly their last stand against the certain Indians. Now the Cherokee say that their ancestors wiped out these ancient people called the Welsh, and the Indians describe a large battle near Jeffersonville, Indiana, near where this fort was, called the Devil's Backbone on Rose Island, and they found 6 bodies in brass armor with the Welsh coat of arms near the area. At least that's what John Sevier said in 1799. They reference it multiple times. This is, as far as I know, the earliest reference to these skeletons buried in brass armor with the coat of arms on them. Now, the evidence seems totally like the Welsh were in America. Most people deny it and cover up literally all of this. In my opinion, they did make it. They likely, possibly built these forts. Oh yes, and this is actually a very important part. The man didn't live in the plain, so people think the Welsh sailed up the Missouri River and inspired the Mandan, but this isn't true. Before the Talagas invaded, likely, and the Talagas were the group that built Cahokia, the Mandan lived, get this, in the Kentucky, Ohio, Indiana area around the Ohio River. The Welsh likely integrated into them, and then the Welsh were pushed up north to the plains. And so this is why I believe the Welsh did make it to America. Well, thanks for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe and share this with friends. If they don't want to listen, share with an enemy. Also, leave a comment down below and follow my Facebook at History of Spriggs on Facebook, or check out my Discord server, which is called History of Spriggs server. And with that being said, Spriggs out.